We are a group, the economy group, and let's see if I can figure this part out. We are Andy Lewis, Brian Nagy,
Yay!
Karen Cruz, Lupe Martinez Ramirez, and Nancy Levenberg. Our project was economy, and I think at the beginning of this we weren't quite sure what that entailed, but we worked through it, and I think our first thought was, how are we going to get people to spend money? That was, economy. We got to get people to spend money. So we found out that there's a whole department of people that work in Napa that work on this thing. And I grew up here. I lived here my whole life, and I had no idea that there was people that focused on this kind of thing. I just figured, people run the city, we bitch about it, and that's it. That there's never anybody to point at. So there is an economic group of people that work on it, and you've seen it through our class. Some of these people came and presented things to us, and I was very, very, very impressed. But it made our project interesting because it's kind of daunting to go into something knowing that there's a group of people whose job it is to do this type of thing, and then there's just 5 of us doing this part-time, but we forged ahead anyway. Okay, what was our vision statement? It was to stimulate the economy of Napa Valley through the community awareness and participation. So how are we going to do this? Well, similar to what you saw previously, we had numerous meetings, and numerous meetings.
With wine.
Yeah, with lots of liquor. Do I have to start over? And the first idea that came out was we wanted, I think it was Andy's idea, why don't we put a sign, some sort of a sign up on the buildings in downtown Napa announcing different things, different events. And so we left that meeting thinking, okay, that's a great idea. We're going to get signage downtown Napa. We're going to put signs, I don't know, maybe along the top of the buildings, going down First Street. We didn't know. So we looked into it and we realized, well, it's an interesting idea, but way too complicated. There's people heard, I don't know, Andy maybe you could talk to it a little bit later, but it was received as a good idea, but also received as a very complicated idea. So we said, no, that's not something this group could tackle. So the next week we met, and we said, hey, the sign idea is a pretty good idea. Let's try and move it from the buildings to the trolley. Let's stick with that sign idea. That also was presented, and they said, nah, that's probably not going to work either. So the next week, why don't we do signage on the ground? We're moving lower and lower in the ground. Well, we rattled that around for a while. We thought maybe a sign at the beginning, at the corner of First Street at Saskville would be something interesting, where we could have, something like you see in a bank, tells the temperature, tells all that kind of thing. But we also found out that that's very difficult to get anything like that into Napa. So then we went and said, maybe the sign's not a good idea. It's been bad luck. Why don't we go with a downtown beautification process, something similar to Adopt a Highway, where you could adopt downtown Napa for a month or a week or something, and one of the businesses down there would adopt it, get a bunch of press and that type of thing. Well, that didn't go over real well either. So now we're approaching Christmas, and we figured, I don't know. So we skipped until after the new year. We figured 2002 wasn't our year. We're going to move to a new year, and Karen came up with a great idea one day. We're sitting around, I think we're drinking some red wine, and Karen said, I've got it. We've got a calendar. And everybody's going, that's pretty doable compared to a sign. We can do calendars. I think that's going to fly. Then we started talking about it, saying, what's going to make it unique? What's going to sell this calendar? What's going to make it different than every other calendar out there? Well, we thought about it for a week. We were really high on the idea of a calendar. And we went a couple of weeks and we came back with, not a Napa Valley calendar specifically, but more of a downtown calendar, something that's unique to downtown Napa. We hadn't seen anything like that before. We said, you know, we can get people involved in this. We can get the businesses involved. We can get the redevelopment agencies involved. We can possibly even get the students involved that are in Napa. And so we said, okay, we're going to go with that. That's what we're going to do. So, historical perspective. The downtown area has historically, since I've lived here, focused on numerous visitors. You've got the locals and you've got the tourists, and that's, I think, going to be kind of a theme that's going to be in Napa for a long, long time. So we wanted to try and hit both. We didn't want to focus on one, and we figured this downtown calendar can do that. What does that mean? I know. North versus south meant north being more of the vineyard county perspective, lots of vineyards, lots of wineries. South, not necessarily that much south, but south, more south than north, being downtown. And we're going to be focused on buildings, the river improvement, you know, all the different things that are going to redevelopment down there. And what we were going to do to supplement this type of focus was we were going to get the high school kids involved by getting the photography classes to take pictures of all the unique things downtown Napa. Okay, so we had to break this project up into chunks. And the way we did it was each of us took a different piece of it. My piece was the presentation. Nancy is the financial analyst person. Karen's the advertising person. Andy's the events and icon. And Lupe was in charge of the artwork. So my part, you are looking at it right now. Good job. And I'll hand it over to you. Did you do her?
You do this because I'm just going to do this in the next thing, and that's it. Just put the calendar estimates up.
The reason why I was the one that said that I would be able to take care of this is because Aldea produces a calendar very much like the one that we wanted to do in our group. And since I write the grants and I do the budgets for all of our programs, it was really easy for me to come up with the way that we could run the numbers for this and get a rough estimate of what it would cost us to produce something like this based on an ongoing project that we have at Aldea. The only difference is that to run the amounts, why don't you give me the... We have a lot of the actual production costs are donated to us, and I had to cost that out. So we have the graphic design donated to us for the Aldea calendar, and we are comped for some of the photography. We in the group decided that we would try to run a contest in the local high schools, at least for the purposes of this calendar, and see if we could get a promising photography student to produce some art that would be usable for us, thus eliminating that cost. And we came up with a potential cost of $29,151. To do 1,000 calendars. It doesn't really make any difference. The real cost of doing something like this is the setup, as it is with most things, so that you can do 5,000 for about the same cost as you can do 1,000. So we just said based on 1,000 because we figured that's about what it would take us to do. And that was the financial analysis, a big number. So if somebody wanted to go on with this project, they would have to do considerable fundraising in order to produce something that would be of art quality. So that was what our group came up with.
All right, I'm Karen Cruz.
Soon to be.
Mrs. Fontanella.
Thank you.
I'm getting married. I'm getting married in August. So I got engaged during Leadership Napa Valley. Anyhow, I was in charge of advertising and marketing, and I think there were several elements that went into this aspect of it. And one thing I'd like to add before I really get into that part of the presentation is that the calendar's focus was really to draw people to downtown Napa by having a community calendar that listed various events that went on in downtown Napa. And so, my challenge was how do we advertise to get revenues to provide for this calendar, and how do we market it? I mean, how are we going to really appeal to the tourists? How are we going to appeal to the locals? And what are we going to do to effectuate our goals? And our main objective, on the next one, the main objective was to establish a means in which Napa Live, which is what the name of our calendar is and our group, can obtain the funding to start the calendar and also to create an ongoing, annual calendar. And those consist of two elements, advertising and marketing. Advertising being appealing to local businesses up Valley, finding interest in how much people would be willing to pay to advertise, either paying for an advertisement in the calendar or paying to advertise an event that they're having in the calendar. And then from a marketing perspective, as I mentioned, revenues would be obtained by what price point we're going to sell our calendar for. And as you can see, this is a high-quality calendar, and our vision was to have a calendar like this, of this quality, to be placed in local businesses that people would actually pay for. So you're obtaining revenues not only from potential advertising, but also from people purchasing the calendar, bringing in ongoing revenues. So in order to take action on both advertising and marketing, we needed to go in and poll people, find out what people really wanted and what businesses were willing to do. So we polled local businesses, we polled tourists, and we polled locals, residents that lived here in Napa, and had various questions. And what came out of it was pretty interesting. And I'm just going to go over some highlights of the polling. What I discovered while doing polling is that it's much more difficult than I ever imagined. And actually bringing the information together, I thought, oh, it's all going to come together in a nice graph. And I didn't ask the right questions to do that. So anyhow, but I'll summarize. When it came to Napa businesses, what I was surprised to find was that most businesses were willing to sell the calendar, but most of them wanted a piece of the action. So you couldn't go in and say, well, you just, out of the goodness of your heart, sell the calendar. But if we say, oh, we'll give you a buck for each calendar, they'd be more willing to sell it. So that was probably the most revealing part of the businesses. Most of them felt that $10 range for the calendars was right. Although we didn't have a mock calendar to show them, I imagine that would be adjusted as well. We also gave different proposals for what type of calendars you could have in all of these polls. Whether you'd want maybe a handout calendar, whether you'd want an annual calendar, or whether, and when I say a handout, I mean like a monthly handout, or something posted on the internet. And the businesses liked the idea of having just a handout calendar. So then we went to Napa residents, and the good thing was most Napa residents felt like downtown was really coming to life, and that was kind of part of the polling. That felt really good. Most all of them would be interested in buying a calendar of this sort, but also stayed around the $10 price range. And most of them wanted an annual calendar, which would make sense because they're all residents and they want to know what's going on all year round. In terms of the tourists, they all unanimously decided, all the tourists we polled said that they'd love to spend more time in downtown Napa. So whatever it is, people are encouraged by the growth of downtown Napa. And they, of course, would be more inclined to come to downtown Napa if they knew about what was going on. So a calendar like this would really help out. And most of them preferred to have an annual calendar, but a lot of them liked having the idea of have it posted on the internet as well, because obviously they don't live in Napa, so it'd be easier for them to access events. And then last of all, the interesting observations I made in my polling was that everyone thought this was a great idea. Everyone liked the concept. People were very sold on it. And also I have to note that we've listed a variety of different things that they'd like to have posted. And although none of the three categories placed city council meetings in the top, it did pull out the county supervisor meetings. And so, and obviously they haven't seen Jill in action. So that was our polling advertising. So
We were shocked.
I was absolutely floored. Yeah, but So
We spent a lot of
now,
time
in terms of, if we'll move forward, we also kind of came up with different advertising options of a proposal of what we could do in a calendar. Here would be 4 different advertising spots at a different price point. Second would be, as you see, it kind of changes the price increases as the size of the advertisement increases. And all the way to $412 and then $825 for 5 minutes. Okay, so I'm done. And
Okay, I've got 5 minutes. I'm holding this, and speaking in public, so I'm multitasking. Don't stress me out anymore. I was in charge of events, icons, and graphics. Icons, well, Kimberly is going to win tonight, so if you're up on American Idol, that's what's happening. Other than that, my responsibility was to take all these ideas and make some type of prototype calendar. And on the surface, it seems kind of easy, but you're getting all these ideas coming in, and you're not in the business of doing graphic arts. So we needed some therapy, and we got it in the sense of having a professional graphic artist help us out here. And what we wanted to do was make the calendar appealing to the eye, to make it informative, and make it topical. So we thought, in doing this, we would have a nice black and white photograph of the downtown area, coupled with some icons that you could kind of visually get onto the calendar with. So these are some of the icons that we looked at in the beginning here. You see we have Krusty the Clown there, and a few other ones. This was an early prototype of the calendar. It was rather boring. We had a block for advertising there. We had no icons. We moved from that to putting in some of our events. Some of the most obscure ones we found in Napa here at the Napa Valley Fava Bean Festival, the all-new chili cook-off, and of course the annual 4-H cockfighting fundraiser. So this is before picture, and if I can get you two to help me out here, we're going to go to the after picture. Yeah, so I'm going to hurry up here. Just a couple minutes here. We have it in English and Spanish, and we're running out of time here. I know Lupe wants to get on. So yes, I am right now. And I wanted to say thank you very much to George DiRienzo of Midnight Graphics for helping us out.
Well, they had homework. I actually had the fun task from our group. My job was to basically be in charge of the artwork. And we first started speaking about professional photographers taking the pictures of downtown or perhaps the county. We decided that focusing downtown would definitely allow us to have the artists focus on downtown and the buildings, especially because they're beautiful. We have a lot of history. So we decided that that would be the focus of the artist. Because I work at a high school and because I know how talented high school students are in taking pictures, we decided to use Napa High School as the school that would take this goal and run with it. And I spoke to the Fine Arts Department, and a couple of students were recommended, and both of them are here, actually, Angela Freitas and Tara Edmondson. The work that these ladies produce is professional work, as you can see. Unfortunately, we had a lot of pictures, as you can see, that they submitted, but we could only choose 2. But they are the creators of this beautiful piece of art, and we wanted to publicly recognize their talent and hope that in the future, some of you guys, or if not, if we continue with this project, that somebody would hire them to do something like this in the future. By doing this, we were hoping that other high schools as well would jump and have other high school students be part of great projects like this one. So with that, Angela and Tara Edmondson, and the picture, I believe that all of you guys got a copy of the actual picture. The one in the front is the one that was produced by Tara, and the one inside was produced by Angela. Okay.